Okay, we will start the webinar for public. Thank you.
Audiens yang hadir tadi banyak bertanya dan punya interest yang tinggi mengenai kelistrikan untuk kepulauan. Dan memang mereka pengen tahu sebenarnya di mana batu sandungnya mengapa listrik kepulauan belum bisa berkembang secara sempurna di Indonesia.
Sini kan banyak pertemuan konsultan mechanical electrical, jadinya pertemuannya di sini sih lebih dominan, lebih ke ketemu dari sisi-sisi konsultan sama lihat dari tim-tim yang biasa berperang di proyek sih, lebih ke situ sih sebenarnya.
Usually we get to meet about 80% of local visitors and about 20% of international visitors. tempat meeting point yang sangat bagus karena customer-customer kami yang lama akan muncul yang kita nggak tahu dan sangat efisien daripada keliling Jakarta temu customer satu persatu.
It's also the opportunity to discover new leads, to talk to people that we usually don't talk, and to showcase our solution.
Kemudian mungkin di masa depan bisa saya gunakan sebagai alternatif dari komponen-komponen yang selama ini saya gunakan. Jadi biar komponennya nggak itu mulu kali ya.
Kita ikut di event elektrik Indonesia, terutama yang diselenggarakan oleh PAMERINDO, kurang lebih hampir 7 kali sejak berdirinya CIN di Indonesia tahun 2005.
Sebenarnya agak menyesal sih kenapa nggak dari tanggal 11, karena emang seru dan dapat banyak vendor baru yang mungkin nanti bakal bisa lebih kompetitif dengan vendor yang selama ini kita gunakan.
Banyak sekali informasi dan teknologi yang sangat pesat sekali yang membuat saya wow gitu kan, dan luar biasa sekali. Dan
banyak produk-produk yang lain yang kita bisa tahu 2 tahun lalu nggak muncul, sekarang muncul apa aja. Dan kita bisa lihat kompetitor perkembangannya, produk-produk kita yang dulu Schneider nggak ada, sekarang sudah ada. Nah, ya ini buat refresh kita untuk kedepannya itu ngapain.
Keep it up and see you in 2 years.
Jakarta's MRT and LRT is a national strategic project which also becomes a prestigious project to Jembo Cable Company TBK. In building this transportation infrastructure, Jembo supplies various kinds of cables, mainly fire-resistant cable in international standard. More than 45 years, Jembo has jumped into cable industry, which contributes in the development of Indonesia and abroad. Starting its production with low-voltage conductor power cable, Jembo, which was established in April 1973, keeps developing cable types and increasing its production capacity. Jembo produces various kinds of cables, which are power cable, overhead transmission, fiber optic cable, fire-resistant cable, metallic corrugated cable, marine cable with DNVGL and BKI certification, and other kinds of cables.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu sekalian. Good morning ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Energy Talk 14 series EV charging ecosystem in Indonesia. Electric vehicles are currently a global trend in society. To support the acceleration of the transition to electric vehicles, Indonesia needs the support from many sectors. From the government, industrial, research sector, and also the community itself play an important role in supporting the ecosystem of electric vehicles. With the hope of improving quality to create better, more efficient, and safer products. This webinar is sponsored by Jembo Cable and Altrax 1978, hosted by Prakarsa Jaringan Cerdas Indonesia, Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, and PAMERINDO Indonesia. This webinar is part of Electric and Power Indonesia. Before we start today's webinar, we would like to welcome Mr. Hikmat Derajat as Executive Vice President Marketing and Products Development at State Electricity Company, PT PLN Persero. Mr. Peter Landberg as Executive Director of Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, Mr. Edi Widiono as a founder and supervisory board of Indonesia Smart Grid Association, Mr. Riza as head of electrical technology at Agency for the Assessment and Application of Technology Indonesia, Mr. Ismail Du as the director of the digital solutions and business development at Icon Plus, Mr. Yatin Premchan as managing director global advisory Black & Veatch, and Dr. Yesapong Lunwal as head of mobility and vehicle technology research center, King Mongkut University of Technology, and honorary chairman at Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand. Also, we would like to welcome all of the attendees of today's 14th Energy Talk session, which will be a forum for discussion about the development of electric vehicles in Indonesia, forum to share strategies and regulations, and a forum for discussion in facing challenges in order to improve the ecosystem of electric vehicle in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off this session today, we would like to inform you that today's webinar is a part of PAMERINDO Sustainable Events. It's our ongoing mission to embed sustainability into everything we do and help our customers and specialist markets do the same. From our operation and business practice to the knowledge and information we provide to our customers and communities, we are committed to making a positive impact. Before we start today's webinar, I'd like to read the rules for attendees today. All the microphone and camera will automatically turn off by the host. Today's webinar will be recorded and will be accessible at www.electricindonesia.com after all of the Energy Talk webinar series has finished. Due to a high demand in participation, please note that the number of seats available are limited to 100 seats and first-come first-served basis shall apply. Attendees will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter by typing your name, your agency or institution name, to whom the question is, and the question into the questions panel. You may send in your question at any time during the presentation. We will collect this and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentations. Speaker may address the questions according to the time available during the Q&A session. A certificate and presentation material can be provided upon request and will be sent by the host via email after all of the Energy Talk webinar series has finished. Without further ado, allow me to introduce the first welcoming speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Peter Lundberg. Mr. Lundberg is an energy engineer with more than 17 years of experience as team leader, project manager, technical manager, system designer, and project planner. He has wide international experience working on projects in Scandinavia, Europe, and Asia. He has extensive experience in district heating, district cooling, energy efficiency, renewable energy, demand-side management, and sustainable urban development. Currently, Mr. Lundberg is the Executive Director at the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association in Bangkok, Thailand. He's leading secretariat to explore, develop, and promote sustainable energy in the Asia Pacific region. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Peter Lundberg.
Hello, everyone. So thank you for joining our webinar today. I have a presentation here that I would like to show you. So bear with me a little bit here. I hope everyone can see my screen here. So yes, so I am currently the Executive Director of the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, APUEA. We are a Bangkok-based industry association focusing on supporting cities to develop sustainable urban energy. So yeah, I'm very glad to be here today and talk about EV developments in Indonesia. But so I will talk a little bit. My presentation will include an angle how to meet the increasing electricity demand that is caused by electric vehicles. So first, I want to just show you here a graph showing the total final energy consumption in the world here. So, and you can see that the thermal energy stands for 51%, and transportation's 33%, and power 17%. So, and you can also see here the small boxes here in this graph indicates how much of these the final energy consumption that comes from renewable energy sources. And you can see for the transportation sector is only 3.4%. So that indicates that there's a long way to go. Even if we electrify all the transportation sector, we also need to make it renewable. Some trends going on here in ASEAN is, of course, recently the ASEAN countries participated during the COP26 meeting in Glasgow. And as you can see in this graph here, there were a number of pledges from ASEAN countries. And if you look at specifically on the net zero targets here, they're only, all countries except 2 have actually set targets for net zero emissions. And you can see here, Indonesia has set a target for 2060. So I would say that in light of this graph and the fact that these pledges have been made, I think there are a lot of changes now in the process in terms of updating energy policies to accommodate these targets. And just looking at different modes on transportation, and you know, there's always a discussion. You know, are EVs better than, you know, diesel or petrol cars because you charge it from a charging station and that is powered by coal power, for example. So, but just to indicate, you know, that EVs are a much better alternative than most other transportation forms in terms of carbon emissions. You can see here that is you know, the worst kind of carbon emission comes from short haul flights, followed by gasoline and diesel cars, and then followed by medium and long haul flights and buses and motorcycles and small gasoline cars. So, and you know, so you know, even today, looking at, you know, the energy mix is used for electricity production, you know, EVs are, you know, emit far less greenhouse gas emissions than most other alternatives, or many other alternatives. So just looking also on the development of EV in the world, you can see that the global electric car stock has increased a lot. It actually has tripled in just 3 years, and we have over 16.5 million EV cars on the road today. So you see this in the exponential growth, basically. So and that is, you know, that will continue. And the same goes with, you know, charging stations, both fast and fast public chargers and slow public chargers. That is also, and of course this has to be, maybe this is one of the barriers why people don't want to buy EVs, is because of, you know, there's a lack of charging infrastructure. So I think maybe this has to be increased to speed up the development even more. And this also showed that another factor that kind of limits the sales of EVs is the number of models of vehicles available in the markets, and that, but it is steadily increasing. So we have now over 450 models available in the world. So I mean, there are many options available now, I would say, and prices are coming down. I want to come back to this graph again and just indicate that, okay, so we still have, you know, transportation sector are going to be electrified. But on the other hand, we also have the thermal energy sector is really the you know, causing the majority of greenhouse gas emissions, is also in a large extent going to be electrified. And as we are in ASEAN, I just want to mention a few words about cooling and the rising cooling demand, because cooling produces about 10% of the world's greenhouse gases today, and there's a steady growth of the cooling demand in the world, and not at least in the ASEAN region. And out of that 10%, about 80% of the emissions come from use of energy. And the other 20% is the emissions of refrigerants that have a strong greenhouse effect. Say. So there's a strong growth on the cooling demand. And if you look at this graph showing that, for example, Indonesia has similar climates as other countries, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, is a tropical climate, but the utilization rate of ACs in Indonesia is below 10%, maybe similar as Philippines. And this is compared to Thailand that has 30%, and Singapore and Malaysia has a utilization rate of ACs of 80% with the same climates there. So the cooling demand in Indonesia, Philippines, and other countries will grow, and more people will buy ACs, and so there will be a big increase in the power demand due to this fact. So how do we meet this? Well, I just want to touch on three kind of technologies that are vital, both in terms of EV infrastructure and in charging EVs, but also in the terms of meeting the growing energy demand that comes from cooling and other sources. And so smart grids are very important because they will allow increased grid flexibility, for example, integration of more renewable energy, by allowing bidirectional energy flow from solar and batteries, for example. Also, it leads to increased efficiency because you can improve the demand side management and really balance production and consumption, so you maximize efficiency. So there's no excess production if not needed. Smart charging as well. You can introduce price incentives for charging, to shift charging times, so you can reduce peak loads, for example, but also vehicle to grid technology, so that your EV becomes an energy storage, and basically you could sell back electricity from your EV to the grid. So we also need to meet the growing cooling demand, and so one example that is play a vital role in our cities, which have a dense energy consumption and high cooling demand, is DC cooling, because that DC cooling system can be up to 50% more efficient than traditional cooling systems. So they have a quite important role in our cities to meet the growing cooling demand, and make our cooling to be supplied as efficient as possible. And the third example I just wanted to talk about is distributed energy. And for example, it could be distributed energy could be a solar PV system somewhere in the city supplying power to the grid locally, but it can also be a co- and tri-generation system. For example, when you use a gas turbine to produce electricity, and then you use the excess energy heat to produce cooling, or potentially cooling and heating. So this kind of system, you can actually produce electricity locally. You can produce also cooling and heating in the same system. So you have a very high efficiency, up to 80% of the fuel is converted to useful energy. If you have decentralized energy production, you reduce the stress on power grids. You don't have to expand your power grids necessarily to distribute all the electricity needed. Of course, now we talk about using natural gas for this kind of system, but of course, hydrogen is something that is coming very strongly and will probably be used in, for example, gas turbines soon. So basically, I just wanted to emphasize here that, of course, we need to allocate and produce, more power to the growing fleet of electric vehicles, but we also have to consider other forms of energy that we will use more of, and what other forms of energy that will be electrified. So everything is interconnected, and we have to think about our whole society as a whole, basically. Okay, thank you very much for me. That was all I had for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your wonderful insight and presentation, Mr. Landberg. And for the next, allow me to introduce the second welcoming speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Edi Widiono. Bapak Edi Widiono is the founder and supervisory board of Prakarsa Jaringan Cerdas Indonesia. Mr. Edi has worked in Indonesia power sector mainly with PT and Persero for more than 18 years in the capacity of Department Head of Director. Mr. Edi strongly encouraged Indonesia in the transition towards the use of renewable energy. He founded the Smart Grid Initiative Indonesia or PJCI on 2015. He's been elected and given the mandate to be a chairman of the expert board of the Indonesian Solar Model Manufacturers Association or APAMSI since 2021 and Smart Grid Ambassador at Global Smart Energy Federation since February 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Edi Widiono. Kepada Pak Edi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and our respected colleagues. Welcome to the Energy Talk 14th with the title of EV Charging Ecosystem in Indonesia, initiated by Indonesian Smart Grid Initiative or PJCI and Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, APUEA. This Energy Talk is also sponsored by Jembo Cable and hosted by PAMERINDO Indonesia. We are grateful for the presence and willingness of participants from all over Indonesia and other parts of the world to discuss openly with the experts in this webinar. Today's speaker, the first, of course, Mr. Peter Landberg, that already gave his welcoming speech, and in addition to that, also explaining a little bit more about his role as an initiative organization of the International Institute of Energy Conservation. The second speakers will be Pak Hikmat Derajat, the Executive Vice President Marketing and Products Development at State Electricity Company or PT PLN Persero. He is a key role person in the PLN digitalization effort. Mr. Hikmat was the CEO of Icon Plus, a digital and telecommunication subsidiary of PLN. The third speaker will be Mr. Insinyur Riza. He is an EV charging senior researcher at National Research and Innovation Agency, BRIN. Previously, he was in BPPT, and now he's the head of e-mobility at PJCI. He leads team that are doing various innovation in mobility, and especially in the development of ecosystem of EV. The fourth speaker will be Mr. Ismail Diu. He is the Director of Digital Solution, the current Director of Digital Solution and Business Development at Indonesia Connect Plus, a senior officer in PLN with many field experience. He was General Manager of PLN Sulsel before joining Icon Plus in 2020. The fifth speaker will be Dr. Yosapong Launa, the head of Mobility Vehicle Technology Research Center, King Mongkut University of Technology, and the honorary chairman of Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or EVAT. We will find a long list of papers and journals of Mr. Launa's work in IEEE, for instance, in various subjects. One of them concerning study of grid-to-wheel energy consumption on EV in Bangkok and design of EV bus and EV tuk-tuk. The sixth one is Mr. Yatin Premchand, the environmental scientist and managing director, global advisory at Black & Fitch, a big consultant company with a long record of operation even in Indonesia. And I understand that now Black & Fitch is also actively
supporting PLN in the recent development. And last but not least, the moderator, Ms. Faila Sufa, a young, well-known Indonesian renewable energy activist with involvement in various studies financed by international donors, among others by ADB. Let me, on behalf of PJCI and organizer of this event, thanking you for sparing your valuable time for this effort. I also would like to thank PT Jembo Cable, a long partner of in the development of electricity industry in Indonesia, which I understand lately also expanding from cable business into PV manufacturing. A bold step that has been taken amid the growing needs of renewable energy technology in Indonesia. To PAMERINDO, that has been our partner in progress for almost 5 years now, I shall congratulate and extend my wish that PAMERINDO will continue its success in the field of promotion and exhibition in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently living in an era of energy transition, an era of transformation from the previous condition of carbon-based economy into decarbonized society. This is particularly evident in cities where emissions, congestion, and safety major issues today, and mobility problem will intensify as car ownership and vehicles miles traveled increase, driven by population and GDP growth. Electrification will play an important role in the transformation of the mobility industry and presents major opportunities in all vehicle segments. To ensure the fast, widespread adoption of electric mobility, launching new EVs in the market is an important step. But in addition to that, the entire mobile ecosystem must work to make transformation successful. The transformation speed is decided by changes in 3 main areas. They are regulation, consumer behavior, and technology. Learning from the past, we could recognize the development of electric vehicles in European Union as the fastest region in adopting EVs are stemmed by regulation and incentives, while China enjoying a strong customer pool even in the reduced. The US growth is slower due to weak regulation and weak customer interest. Experts predict that the current regulatory will allow EV adoption of 45% by 2030 in China and European Union, which is already a spectacular achievement, giving a lot of constraints and challenges. But it falls short of 75% that required to achieve net zero emission target. Some EU countries even vow to end production of internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030 or the latest by 2035. In line with EV uptake, the buildup of charging infrastructures need to accelerate to avoid becoming a potential bottleneck and limiting consumer-driven EV adoption. At present, many EV owners are still relying on private charging, but as numbers of dwellers in multi-family housing or apartment increases, the need of public charging facilities will also increase. This development will in turn require development of EV charging ecosystem, integration to smart electricity grid and cashless payment system, even to the point of integrating them into smart city network. In Indonesia, the government has a target to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources has announced a target of electric vehicle penetration of 2 million electric cars and 13 million electric motorcycles by 2030. This is a part of effort to achieve net zero emission target as stated above. With the increase of the number of electric vehicles, a corresponding number of public charging stations will also needed. The issue of the limited number of public charging facilities is still a challenge today. Although for a measured distance, this charging issue can be anticipated and calculated, but it is necessary to consider the ratio between the number of vehicles and SPKLU, or public EV charging station. It is expected by some experts that to fulfill the government's target, the ratio of electric vehicles to SPKLU shall be around 1 to 70. I mean, one SPKLU for 70 vehicles. Some other experts said that this ratio perhaps is still too small and will cause anxiety to EV users and may cause a weaker customer pool EV market. The webinar EV charging ecosystem in Indonesia is one of the many platforms available to discuss all sorts of information regarding Indonesia's program on implementing early development steps of EV charging. As such, the experts that gather here are to discuss several concerns, starting from first, strategy to increase the number of EV charging users in Indonesia. Secondly, the influence of the government and industrial sector, as well as other sectors in the development of the EV ecosystem in Indonesia. The third one is challenges faced by various sectors in supporting EV in Indonesia. The fourth, improving EV services, especially in the charging method for EV vehicle users in Indonesia. And last but not least, number fifth, readiness of industrial sector in preparing charging station in the future in improving the EV ecosystem in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope can provide answers or directions to solution of many questions that still lingering in our minds. Understanding the critical step to improve EV charging ecosystem and strengthen our confidence to the bright future for our future mobility. Thank you and best wishes from us, Indonesia Smart Grid Initiative. Sobat PJCI, salam Smart Grid. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Edi, for the opening remarks and wonderful insight. Okay, for the next, I would like to introduce today's keynote speaker, Mr. Hikmat Derajat. He is the Executive Vice President, Marketing and Products Development at State Electricity Company, PT PLN Persero. Mr. Hikmat is an electrical engineer, graduated from Institut Teknologi Bandung. He also took a sector management program at the University de Montreal in 2001. Mr. Hikmat was the Director of Commerce of PT Icon Plus from February 2012 until June 2015. He then became the President Director of PT Icon Plus from June 2015 until October 2019. Mr. Hikmat became the EVP Quality Assurance of PT PLN Persero from November 2019 until June 2020. Mr. Hikmat has the competencies in many fields, especially the energy reform, electricity power system, and renewable energy system. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Hikmat Derajat.
Thank you very much, Mbak Anissa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Bapak Edi Widiodo, as founder and president of PJCI, Peter Lundberg as Asia Pacific Urban Energy, and all speakers and all participants. Good morning, everyone. Please let me present on behalf of Pak Bob Sariel as our Director of Commerce. I would like to present topics. Can you see my slide, Anissa?
Yes, Bapak, it's okay.
Okay. I would like to present our topics today, EV industry ecosystems. This is talk about how to shift imported base energy consumptions to domestic base energy consumption. This is the slideshow, Anissa.
Ya Pak, mungkin boleh di full screen untuk PPT.
Okay. Eko, please present my material. I will stop my share. Stop share file. We talk about how to save imported based energy consumptions for the EV ecosystems. At least there are strategic issues, four strategic issues. The first about regulations, means how the government incentives can encourage the EV adoptions, especially currently in Indonesia situations. And the second, how upstream industry, it means how the readiness of battery productions in order to make it cheaper than the ICE comparisons. And the third, of course, how EV infrastructures, we talk about charging stations for the publics. And the last, of course, how the EV technology, it means the e-mobility. These are the all materials to accelerate EV adoptions. Next. Talk about how EV driving force on the carbonization process. The governments of Indonesia set up the targets at least 2060 for the target of net zero emissions. Of course, this is the release on the global target as an Indonesian target. And of course, for the two-wheelers and four-wheelers, at least 100% of the numbers of EV 2050. And of course, there are 60,000 targets of EV charging stations, at least in 2030. And the current situation about carbon emission from transportation sectors in 2019, at least 158 million CO2 emissions. Next. Talk about how the situations of energy currently in Indonesia. We have to talk about balance of oil as the background. This is very important because imported to domestic based energy consumption currently very dominant comes from the imported based energy consumptions. You can look these figure out that this year at least 1.4 million barrels a day we consume to the oil for the transportation sectors, and this will increase year by year, and at least 6 times on 2050 without EV adoptions. This is very challenging. How the imported base energy consumption still dominant in Indonesia. That's why we have to acceleration of EV adoption will change imported base energy consumption to domestic base, because we know electricity produced locally means this is part of how to shift from imported base energy consumption to domestic base. And also the significant impact, it will improve current account deficit of Indonesia. Next. If we talk the regulation itself, we can see this the comparisons of a battery electric vehicle compared to ICE. On the road price currently, this is the one example, still higher if we buy an EV compared to ICE. But you can see for the energy consumptions, because EV, electricity domestics, efficient to consume of the energy, and the cost of energy cheaper than ICE. You can see these comparisons. Only 200 rupiah for kilometers, but for ICE, 860 rupiah per kilometer. This is that's why the regulations how to government incentives make EV more competitive than ICE in order to accelerate EV adoptions. If we ask to the public, ask to the customers, they currently they prefer to buy ICE, still use ICE because the price of battery electric vehicle still higher than ICE. That's why the governments have to encourage the regulation to make competitive of EV. Next. If we talk about the PLN EV ecosystems, current situation already on the markets. As we know, the current situations of electricity, the oversupply of electricity at the systems. And we already operate how to make EV always on through the charge in as a EV operating systems available on a PLN mobile. This is a very useful applications to the publics in order to navigate public charging station informations. If we write of the EV, this application will navigate for the charging station information. And also, we also provide how PLN encourage of the public to use EV by home charging services. It means you can look this figure out that there is a discount night chargings from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. every day if EV owners charge at their homes. And also we give them the more easily to power capacity upgrades only pay by 150,000 rupiah. And also you can see electric vehicle charging station or SPKLU. We can public or the investors collaborate with PLN and for the swapping battery also. Next. This is all the PLN products and services to accelerate EV adoption in ecosystems. There is charging platforms, EV incentives, and then also home charging services. And very interesting here, PLN already released the product EV charging station for the public as a franchise model. It means everybody, investors, everyone will collaborate with PLN through the franchise model in order to provide charging station in the public. And also we provide EV marketplace. This is one of the electric vehicle digital services of PLN through our subsidiary of course Icon Plus as well. Next. This is how PLN Mobile as the super apps can help every EV owners while they ride their EV in order to how to know any information about the charging stations, means remote start-stop charging, and then how to use nozzle status and how to charge their EV, and also until the payment cashless transactions in order to EV always on everywhere they ride their EV intercity or inner cities. And also in PLN Mobile, we provide home charging services in order to all of the EV owners can charge overnight charging for the discount tariff 30%. Then next. This is the current situations of whole Indonesian's PLN electric vehicle charging stations, we currently operate 129 units the whole of Indonesia, and will increase this year at least 50 to 100 the new of electric vehicle charging stations the whole of Indonesia. And also we will collaborate through the franchise model. Next. Okay, that's our presentations, and thank you very much to all of participants, and back to our moderators, to Anissa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Hikmat, for the insightful presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce today's moderator to the panel. Please welcome Ms. Vela Sufa. Ms. Vela Sufa is co-founder Forum Energi Muda and EV Enthusiast. I will hand over the discussion panel today to Ms. Vela Sufa to lead as a moderator. Ms. Vela, the floor is yours.
Hi Anissa, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Vela Sufa, or Vela, and I will lead the rest of the 14th series of webinar Energy Talk as the moderator today. Mr. Hikmat Derajat, our keynote speaker today, already started the session wonderfully. But we will continue this webinar with the other inspiring lineups of speakers. I know it's going to be a packed session since we will have 4 other speakers, but interesting nonetheless. I'm so excited about the insights on EV charging ecosystem in Indonesia that we are going to learn from our speakers, and about all the fruitful conversations that hopefully we're gonna have today. After the presentation of each speakers, we will follow this with Q&A session. And all right, now let's dive into the second speaker. Pak Edi and Anissa have introduced our second speaker. He is Mr. Insinyur Riza, as the EV charging senior researcher at BRIN, or National Research and Innovation Agency. And he's also the head of Prakarsa Jaringan Cerdas Indonesia on e-mobility division. Prior to this, Pak Riza was the head of engineering center of BPPT and former program director of BPPT Charging Station Innovation. So he's really one of the person that knows really well about the EV ecosystem and charging infrastructure network in Indonesia. Pak Riza is graduated from Okayama University in Japan, from Department of Electrical and Electronics. And afterwards, he is visiting scholar at Tokyo Institute of Technology for Power Harmonic Study in 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Pak Insinyur Riza. And thank you, Pak Riza, for your time today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator. I try to share my presentation. Is it clear, my slide?
It's a little bit small, but so it will be better if you can. Yeah, this is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Pak Edi Widiono, founder of PJCI, Mr. Peter Lundberg, Executive Director of Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, Pak Hikmat Derajat, Executive Vice President, Marketing and Product Development of PT PLN, and all of this distinguished speaker. Good morning. I'm honored to be here today with all of you in this exciting occasion. My name is Riza, Senior Researcher at National Research and Innovation Agency, and I was the Program Director of the BPPT Charging Station Innovation. It has always been my interest to talk about the EV charging ecosystem, especially in the technical side of the EV charging station. This is my outline. Okay, next, I will go directly to the global EV. As Mr. Lundberg already present, this is the number of the EV in the world. As you can see, the growth is exponentially. And when we see about the data of the energy consumption in 2022 has reached 30 terawatt hour per year. And If we see by the country, China dominates with total sales of more than 3 million units, followed by Europe and United States. The right side is the number of the charging infrastructure, charging station or charging unit. As you can see, China also the dominant in the number. And as we can see here, the proportion between the fast charger and normal charger, the normal charger approximately 30 to 80% of the number of the total charger station. This is the pusher and enable of the EV ecosystem: charging speed, the carbon regulation, battery capacity, driving range and power capability, and also the deployment of the charging points. In the next this slide, I will show the technology related to the how to increase the charging speed. Okay, when we talk about the EV charging infrastructure, EV not only about the physical of the EV charger unit, not only talk about the plug standard, but there are so many parties involved in the charging network infrastructure, both from the energy and also the information. And we have to know that the EV charging, yeah, this is cashless, yeah, and no operator, self-services. So the process will strongly rely on the quality of the ICT infrastructure. ICT for mobility, the network and data communication system, mobile application, and we need also back-end system. Yeah. Later, Mr. Ismail will explain about the network in ICON. Yeah, there is a OCPP server, central control system, database system, billing system, and also related to the payment system. Here is the flow of energy and also the data. This is the simplified figure of the charging process. For the electric car, when it is plugged into the charging unit, first there is the communication between the charging station, charging unit to the vehicle. If there is no communication, then the process will not be established. This is the protocol communication is the closed protocol. For example, CCS, CHAdeMO, GBT, Tesla, etc. So the CCS, CHAdeMO, and GBT not only about the physical appearance of the plug, but also the protocol communication. And there is also communication between the EVSE, EV supply equipment, to the control center and to the driver, yeah, via internet using the open charge point protocol. So the EV charging, once again, not about the power, but also the information technology. When we talk about EV, sometimes we compare how fast the filling or charging compared to the ICE. There are two elements here. First, the capability of the charging station or charging unit, and the 10 of the technology for the charging station is growing. I agree, the power grow from 20, 50. Now there are so many charging stations that capable to deliver power more than 150 kilowatt. For example, ABB Terra can give a 300 kilowatt and CPENGs more than 480 kilowatt. But the main problem is the battery capability to receive the power. The previous EV used 450 or 500 DC battery voltage, but now the new EV adopt the 800 or 900 VDC. And maybe in the next years, there will be greater battery voltage for EV in order to receive more power to reduce the charging speed. Yeah. This is the example of the 800 volt EV architecture, and some manufacturer already use this architecture in order to make the charging process faster. Okay, when we talk about the charging process, as we know, there are two ways to charge the EV via AC charging and also DC charging. The left side is the power curve or power profile. Yeah, when we charge the EV using AC charger, since there is no since the power from AC going to the onboard charger on the car, then the onboard charger will regulate the power to charge the battery. So the power is flat. Yeah. When you give 22 or maybe 43 kilowatt AC, and the power will flat. But in the DC charging, yeah, there are two sections. There are two periods actually. Yeah, the first section is from the initial SOC of the EV up to 80% SOC. So when we talk about fast charging only up to 80% SOC. And when we want to continue the charging process, then the charging station will automatically reduce the power, same as the slow charging process. As you can see here in the right side, there are two graphs here, but both the same. When the SOC of the battery reach the 80%, then the EV charger will control the power to reduce the power with slow or normal charger. And with this graph, we can see that the time duration between the initial SOC to the 80 SOC is lower than the duration from 80% to 100%. So I think this is important information that we have to know when using the fast charging. And we can see here, even we use the same charging station and same plug, but the profile different, depend on the battery management system in the car. Okay, when we talk about the EV charging infrastructure, not only about the fast or ultra fast charger, there are several types of charger. Then I think we have to encourage also the installation, not only about the fast charger, but also in normal auto or slow charging. Of course, for the stopover charging, like in the highway, rest area, or fuel station, it is we need the fast or ultra fast charging station. Yeah, but for other areas such as company fleet, bus depot, or the parking area, I think it is enough to use the slow charging, because when the employee bring the car and can charge the car during his working. So the number of slow charging when we in the developed country, for example, in the Europe, yeah, the number of normal charging approximately 70 to 80% of the total charger. Okay, next is about the our activity related to the research in the EV charging. Okay, we start the programs in 2018. This is the first fast charging station, and then 2019 there is a president decree to acceleration the battery-based electric motor vehicle, and we are actively make promotion or education and give information to the public through the several exhibitions. For example, in 2019, this is the first Indonesia Electric Motor Show, and in the 1921, the second Electric Motor Show, and this year we plan to conduct the Indonesia Electric Motor Show in November 2022. And this is the number of EV charger in Indonesia. We have the data from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. There are 381 units, mostly PLN SPKLU as a majority, and there is also Pertamina, hotels, and car distribution. And to support the successful G20 meeting in Bali in November 22, we have information that more than 600 EV will be used, and PT PLN will add more ultra-fast charger, and also manual chargers in Bali Island. Okay, when this is our current activity, as explained before, in the EV charging infrastructure, not only about the physical or about the power supply, but ICT is also important. The current version of the OCPP is 1.6. Yeah, in some countries, OCPP 2.1 is already deployed. Yeah, when the version 2.0 applied into the central system, we need the message translator to operate EV supply equipment with 1.6 OCPP. Now we have successfully developed the software to translate the OCPP 1.6 message into OCPP 2.6. Yeah. Next, we will develop the hardware and implement testing to the commercial charging station. And also, we have successfully developed the testing tool to detect whether the message coming from the charging station into the charging station manager is correct or not correct. Yeah, because this is also important to make sure that the information, the data information from the charger to the charging station is correct. Okay, for the hardware, after we develop the system level charging station, and we have already also developed the AC charger in the equipment level. This year, we want to increase the local content or TKDN by developing the up to model or component level. There are two modules here: power converter, also the charger controller for the EVSE. And also for the three-wheelers, this is our latest research. We are successfully to modify the OCPP for four-wheelers into two-wheelers, application software, also back-end system. This is important because the two-wheeler battery swap station, there is no common or standard protocol, and the system can be applied as the common protocol for integrating all of the battery swap station. The next, we, as explained before by Mr. Peter, yeah, the V2G technology, the bidirectional converter on the EV allows bidirectional power flow. So the power not only from the grid to the battery, but also can send back from the battery to the grid. Yeah. There are two conditions here: when for backup, for the emergency, and also for the grid support. A smart and well-relevant V2G charging approach will smoothing peaks in the load curve. This will bring advantages for the EV owner and also for power grid and for whole the energy system at large. Yeah. The attractive electricity buying and selling rates can enable EV user to participate in the demand response. So the business process is also important, not only about the technology. Okay, I think this is all of my presentation. As we believe the number of EV user will increase because the more competitive EV will enter in the next few years. Yeah, And to attract the EV users, we need to increase the number of charging stations, not only for fast charging, but also normal charging in many places, because this is low investment and low tariff. Yeah. BRIN will, the National Research and Innovation Agency will continue to work closely with stakeholders to support the development of EV ecosystem in Indonesia in order to create better environment and the growth of the EV industry and its supporters. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Riza, for a wonderful and insightful presentation. Next on our discussion panel today, we have Mr. Ismail Deu. Mr. Ismail Deu is the Director of Digital Solutions and Business Development at Icon Plus. And prior to this, Mr. Ismail was the GM of PLN Unit Induk in South Sulawesi, Southeast, and West Sulawesi. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Mr. Ismail Deu.
Okay, thank you, the moderator. Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Edi Widiono, founder and supervisory from PJCI, and speakers and participants today. On this occasion, we will we continue. On this occasion, we will present with the title Accelerating for Ecosystem Growth in Indonesia. Here we try to explain the position of Icon Plus in supporting government program to accelerate EV ecosystem, where Icon as a subsidiary of PLN engaged in digital efforts with developing EV ecosystem, especially in building the EV ecosystem platform. Okay, let's continue the presentation. In this slide, it can be seen that vehicle contribute 70 to 80% of emission in big city, including in Indonesia. This is due to large number of additional vehicles that contribute to emission in the energy sector. As we have known, EV has been on the hottest topic in Indonesia regarding technology, environment, energy conversion, and so on. Transforming from combustion engine to electric motor is a big step in Indonesia vehicle industry, which will tackle a lot issue we are facing in Indonesia, not only on oil scarcity, but also electricity oversupply, high CO2 emission, and will lead to new domestic business growth surrounding EV business, including nickel refinery and battery manufacture. But this breakthrough is not without obstacles. We are still facing issues covering battery price, vehicle taxes, charging location, and much more. To accelerate to breakthrough, PLN had released new menu called EV Digital Service in our super apps PLN Mobile as solution to incubate and accelerate EV product and services as part of triggering business growth surrounding the EV ecosystem in Indonesia through providing platform and infrastructure. EVDS will, by doing this talent group, hoping to start the snowball effect in creating EV business environment, inviting all stakeholders and course to actively taking parts to cooperate to achieve our goals in energy conversion from fossil fuel to electricity together. In this slide, you can see at PLN Mobile, we have also developed several features to support the EV ecosystem. Here, customer can enjoy charge-in marketplace, home charging, test drive feature, and we hope is this platform we accelerate the growth of the EV ecosystem and help customer use electric vehicle. Okay, to ensure the best experience for EV owner and potential owner, we are trying to build end-to-end business process from exploring to after sales. We would not be able to do this on our, so we are open for collaboration with government and private sector. Currently, we already have several features that we are proud of. The first one, which probably already sounds familiar for public, which we call it charge-in. The main feature for charge-in, NEV especially in public place, from finding the charging location to pay for the charge. The newest one is to stop the charging anytime from the application. Those features are ready of your hand by using PLN Mobile. Today's PLN has 151 charging stations across in Indonesia, focusing in Bali to support G20. Among the chargers, we already have the ultra fast charging, the school charge, and EV with 80 kilowatt hours battery from 0 to full within 30 minutes. To ensure safety during charging time, especially with ultra fast charging, we are using protocol specific for EV called the OCPP. Our connection between charger to our network is certified by ISO 15118 and IEC 61. This one with all EV port regulated by government. In addition, we are currently the stakeholder to bring battery swap feature station information on battery available, and soon
Halo, Pak Ismail. Sepertinya Pak Ismail. Halo Pak Ismail. Hi Pak Ismail, I think you're disconnected. We can barely hear your voice.
If the owner now can enjoy and more easy when the charge at home feeling yes.
Yeah, Pak Ismail, we can barely hear your voice. So maybe it's better for you to turn off your camera and see if it's better that way.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, I got you back, Pak Ismail.
Okay.
Please continue your presentation.
Okay, I continue. Okay, and we didn't stop it there. EV owner now can enjoy and more easy when they charge at home. Philanthropic collaboration with Icon Plus, Haleora, and ATPM such as Hyundai are now offering an option for home charging services. Delivered with Haleora with years of experience handling electricity appliance at home. And now customer could seamlessly order the services through preferably authorized dealer across Indonesia. Furthermore, customer with enabled services also enjoy 30% discount for charging from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. This time possible to charge EV. No hassle necessary because we could schedule the charging time using PLN mobile. Okay, next. Okay, secondly, we have a marketplace platform we create to promote and enable for customer to make an order for their very first EV. Soon we will have a test drive feature. So potential customer who interested with the EV could request for the test drive with one click from their smartphone. No need to go to the dealership. We will soon also offer an EV insurance and home charger insurance to increase further the comfortability and security for our customer. As with the development, we are planning to engage with community and build a strong connection between EV users and also welcoming new owners in shaping EV ecosystem in Indonesia. Sharing information and keep up with updates, listing up the needs, find the best suitable regulation and more. We are currently also start discussion with vocational school in order to prepare for student and possible to be ready with the market shifting from combustion engine to electric motor which growing rapidly and catch the opportunity to provide maintenance services, offering modification and new business around the EV business. By doing this, we are trying to tackle obstacle for EV mainly on how to lower the price of buying, owning, and maintaining an EV, and also giving the best experience, comfort, and safety to our customer. And then electric vehicle digital prospect, the first energy transition push a new business by supporting carbon emission reduction by 20 to city and to 29 and less relying on fossil fuel will lead for market to change and push growth and new business opportunity related EV and green energy. And second, economic impact on increasing consumption per capita. And the end, increase mobility with eco-friendly energy. Okay, this is my presentation. We apologize for the noise and for not being. Now, maybe I apologize for this webinar until the end because we still have events to attend. And here we are with our team. Mr. Adi is the Vice President beyond KWH. And then discussion will be continued, Mr. Adi. Thank you for the opportunity. Back to moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ismail, for joining us today despite your very busy schedule, ya Pak. It's interesting to see Icon Plus products in digitalization of EV ecosystem in Indonesia, and I really look forward to dig deeper on charging apps with Pak Adi during the Q&A sessions and other questions that we'd like to ask to Icon Plus. Now, without further ado, let's dig into our next discussion panel. We have Mr. Yatin Premchan. He's joining us from across the sea. Mr. Premchan is the Managing Director of Black & Fitch Global Advisory Team in Asia Pacific. He is a strategic specialist across public and private sectors, including finance with successful achievements in sustainable investment, project development, and technology, due diligence, and risk management. He has over 22 years of experience in consultative business development, commercialization, strategic advisory, and planning. So now, without further ado, please welcome Mr. Yatin Premchan. Mr. Yatin, the floor
Good morning.
yours.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know whether you see this.
Yes, I can
you
see
do?
that.
Great.
Perfect.
So thank you very much for inviting Black & Veatch today. It's a very exciting time for energy transition, and obviously electric vehicles plays a very important role in not only the transport sector and decarbonization, but also more importantly in the entire ecosystem, pertaining to us being able to meet our climate obligations and perhaps the survival of our species and everything else we depend on. So thank you very much for this opportunity to invite us to speak today. What I'm going to do basically, a fantastic presentation so far. I think a lot has been covered already, so I apologize for repeating myself, based on some of the other presentations. But without a further ado, maybe I can just continue, with the subject at hand. Can you see the slide? Could you just reconfirm that it's moved to the next slide? Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So basically what we're looking at here, which again has been covered, is looking at the transformation that's occurring across the transportation sector. Without getting into the hydrogen play and ammonia play of transport, the low-hanging fruit for converting from ICE to a lower carbon-intensive form would be electric vehicles. Some of the drivers, as we've seen in previous presentations, is looking at the cost saving on the electricity side versus fuel. There's energy security as well that plays a role with respect to being able to bring fuel in from overseas. And now Indonesia in particular, which again will be on another slide, has had about almost two decades worth of fuel import. So resiliency on foreign imports is a sort of a key component, with respect to the transition. In terms of being able to move through these different phases, in terms of decision-making, cost savings, the increase of the utilization of transportation and the various systems in transportation and vehicle types, and then moving into the sustainability and sort of underpinning renewables, clean energy, decarbonization, and providing for new jobs and job creation and advancement as well. So that's kind of what's driving a lot of the adoption for low carbon transport solutions, EVs in particular. Looking at a trend in the US, what we're seeing is this sort of direct conversion, if you will, from gas and diesel, or should I say petrol and diesel in this case, into driving that into electricity consumption. So there is this sort of direct correlation of a moving of energy, should I say, the use of energy from fuels to electricity. Now, there is always the consideration with respect to what kind of electricity is being used. Are we going to be using, a lot of coal, for example, coal power generation to drive the consumption of electricity into electric mobility? Or are we going to look at diversification of that into everything from your renewables, geothermal, utilization of energy efficiency, and obviously looking at eventually nuclear as well. So there's a bit of a hybridization that's required in the energy system mix in terms of power generation and delivery in the grids as well. So this is kind of the trend that we not only are seeing in the US, we're seeing that all over the world. On the adoption of EVs, again, this has been covered a couple of times. Bloomberg New Energy Finance has a lot of this very up-to-date information that we also tap on for macro trends. Looking at where the EV population of cars is going, for example, of vehicles. I mean, we're looking at around a 500 million passenger EV total in terms of new sales that is taking place, and 40 million commercial vehicles coming online. What you can see in terms of the trends on the left side, in terms of the fleets, a lot of it is being driven on the fleet side of things. So buses, transport in terms of logistics, and then looking at the light commercial, driving that down into passenger vehicles, medium commercial vehicles, and then all the way down at the bottom into heavy commercial vehicles. And that would be looking at things like, for the mining sector, for example, heavy haulers, etc., down on the yellow line down there. So with all of this, there is a pretty, should I say, underpinning drastic need for a change in infrastructure modernization as well, in terms of power systems, in terms of adoption of different levels of charging infrastructure, the management of that infrastructure, and how that then connects into the overall power demand and supply configuration and the systems that kind of support that infra. In terms of what we're looking at in terms of drivers for Asia, these are some pretty large numbers that we're looking at here with respect to the rest of Asia, excluding China, Japan, and India. On the infrastructure side, there's somewhere in the order of 360 million plus that's being put in. There are also a number of charge points that are taking a route across different economies. So 120,000 charge points that have been deployed. Again, this is excluding China, India, and Japan. By 2030, we're looking at a threefold, sort of a 4, 5, 6-fold increase of those charge points in region. And obviously looking at the charge points, being able to cater to different types and sizes of vehicles themselves. Medium vehicles and trucking taking a good percentage of that, as well as a pretty large percentage of residential charge points. Market drivers, prices are dropping, as we know, for battery packs and solutions themselves. As we heard earlier on, there's a lot of diversity coming in play with respect to the types of vehicles and the options in terms of models. There are apps and technologies basically allowing consumers and fleets to be able to optimize the load that they're using on the vehicles, the availability of these vehicles, access to charge point accessibility, and then the management of all of those systems through a combination of not only ICT, but also the communication models that sort of bring those fleets and aggregation of the entire ecosystem together, and then connecting that with the power supply infrastructure and the power generation. Fuel cost is another big driver, and fuel security. So we're seeing, especially in countries where fuel is being brought in, there is a increased reliance on volatility of fuel price. We're seeing that with obviously LNG currently, and that has knock-on effects into other parts of the fuel value chain. So that's again another driver with indigenous production of energy and the utilization of that energy. Incentives are driving some of this at this point in time, predominantly looking at a combination of electricity pricing regimes, the development of energy markets, the creation of very interesting business models, which I will get into in a couple of slides, and then looking at also incentives around the ability to lower the cost in terms of buying electric vehicles themselves, and then the availability of infrastructure around that. So that's basically the grids to the charge point, as well as the upstream power generation. In terms of what's happening in Indonesia, again, a lot of this has already been covered in some of the slides that we saw. Looking at the power generation mix to be able to fuel, quote unquote, fuel electric vehicles in terms of charging. Down at the bottom, you see a 2019 figure. Obviously, there are commitments that have been made through COP26, and those will be refreshed with respect to this energy mix. And the concerns around energy security that Indonesia will also and is also grappling with. A high capacity of renewables, indigenous power generation, climate pressures, are all playing a role, which will slowly start moving this mix into something in a more decarbonized sort of a percentage, what you see here versus the coal percentage currently. In terms of commitments on the targets that Indonesia has at least announced in principle, we are looking at sort of a 20% mix of all vehicles to be looking at alternative fuels by 2025. Again, there's a lot of work that needs to be done and is being done on the investment side, the technology side, the adaptation and augmentation of power delivery. And then looking at this target of 80% of localization by 2029, which includes the battery production and the ecosystem that goes with that. Now, Indonesia does play a role with respect to the commodities segment in the battery supply chain. So there's another value-added incentive to be able to scale that up on a local side and take an opportunity of the transition of economy, as well as the value chain that electric vehicle infrastructure brings to the local economies. One other part of that is looking also at these larger schemes, 195 gigawatts worth of factories that are intended to be set up in country, tapping on that value chain and that supply chain of materials, and then potentially export of some of these integrated solutions on the battery side, which again will fuel the economy. And then looking at incentives such as, for lower tax rates, et cetera, and taxation of fuel vehicles and green bonds. I think with that, looking at the business proposition here, you've got the B2B and the B2C through the dotted lines, what you see up here. I will delve into some of these in more detail. But basically what you see on the left side are the OEMs.
I'm sorry, but yeah, your 10 minutes time is up. So
sorry about that.
You can make it faster. And
sure. What I'll do is I'll just skip through a lot of these. These will be circulated as well. But what I'll get into maybe is just a minute I'll spend on a current project we are rolling out in Southeast Asia. And that is looking at not only the business plan development, the procurement and upgrade of fleets, but also the investments, the policy regulation, everything else that goes with it in terms of business enablement to be able to get a business model up and running in Asia. So we are actually working right now in Southeast Asia with a very predominant company, which has a conglomerate in the cement sector, in the building sector, and a whole host of other sectors that they work in, to be able to actually deploy a business viable solution on the back of the local utilities. So these are the kinds of things that we can help you with. There's some references to ebooks that we have as well, which will be circulated, and look forward to being able to support Indonesia with the growth of the EV sector itself. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yatin, for the interesting presentation. It's very fantastic, and I agree with you too that electrifying commercial fleets at this point of time is very effective, an effective strategy. You mentioned about your past project, the current project, electrifying cement trucks, logistic, and other commercial or logistic vehicle. What a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. We can follow that up later during the Q&A session.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, our time is almost up and we are entering our last panel discussion with the last speaker. He's coming from Thailand. We have Dr. Yosapong Lonwal. So Dr. Lonwal is the head of Mobility and Vehicle Technology Research Center at King Mongkut's University of Technology. And he is also the honorary chairman at Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand. Mr. Lonwal, please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think this is, so far, it's very interesting presentation from Indonesia. Can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see your slide.
Right. Okay. I will use my 10 minutes to talk about, okay, what's happening in Thailand. Will be to see that we have some same interest between, from Thailand and Indonesia. I will try to brief what's happening in Thailand. So as you know that I like to talk a bit about the, different type of technologies. So when we're talking about HEV, is mean the hybrid electric vehicle, and PHEV and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And when I'm talking about the battery EVs, will be BEVs, and the fuel cell is FCEV. In Thailand, I think many people already know that when we're talking about, a lot of people, when we talk about EV, they probably would be plug-in hybrid and the battery EV. And also, I think in Thailand, we try to move toward what we call zero emission vehicle, which is the battery EV and fuel cell electric vehicles. So we call zero emission vehicles, ZEV. So the reason I'm talking about this first, because I think our policy will be try to focus on the zero emission vehicle now. So we have we are setting up what we call a National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee, which is chaired by Deputy Prime Minister, and also combined with the minister level, like Minister of Industry, Minister of Transport, and Minister of Energies. And because of the current Deputy Prime Minister, they hold position of the Minister of Energy too. So the key driver of this committee is to promote the electric vehicle that will be using to reduce the air pollution issue, especially in a big city. And also in Thailand, we commit carbon neutrality in 2050, so that the electric vehicle should be able to reduce quite a lot of amounts of greenhouse gas. And of course, the automotive industry is one of the key industry in Thailand. So hopefully that with the move of EVs, there will be new industry created in this one. So the vision is to make Thailand to become a global production and supply hub for electric vehicle and automotive part. Right, so we have a target, as I mentioned, the vision, and I think we set the goal that in 2035, Thailand should be moving toward of the 100% zero emission vehicle cell. That means the battery EV or the fuel cell electric vehicle by 2035. And also they have a short-term, a medium-term target we call 30 at 30. So it's a target to focusing on the zero emission production by 2030. So we would expect that to have the electric passenger vehicle pickup and pickup truck will be produced about 30% of total production. As you can see, the number, it would be a target about 725,000 units. And of course, in the domestic, in the Thailand, they will target to have the 50% total sales in 2030 for the electric passenger and the pickup truck. And of course, we target on the bus and truck, and also electric motorcycle, and also the electric tuk-tuk, if you know about the tuk-tuk in Thailand, so the three-wheeler vehicle. And and then we have what we call national incentive scheme, which is basically we have scheme for EV investment scheme by the Board of Investment, and they already have some scheme that if you want to import the EV and you are planning to produce in next 2 years, you can have no import tax. Mostly, many countries will be reduced to 0%, but other countries in Europe probably will be reduced to 40% import tax. And then they reduce on excise tax on the vehicle and auto parts. So for the infrastructure, there will be have special electricity price. They're also planning the location for the public charging station around the country. And also they will have, they already implement the cheaper annual vehicle registration fee, and the government try to putting the EV fee into the government vehicle use. And also they have some user subsidy program. Right. Okay, look at the current EV status in Thailand. Okay, so look at in year 2021, as you can see that, I mean, if we separate it into HEV, hybrid electric vehicle, the blue one is PHEV and the BEV is the green one. So as you can see that for the new legislation from last year, we have about 35,000 the hybrid vehicle, and for the battery EV, it's about 5,000. More than 5,000 battery EVs. I might not go to detail, but you can look at mostly for the battery EVs, it's the motorcycles. More than half is motorcycles, and the car is the second proportion there. For in terms of the accumulation or the EV stock in Thailand, so of course the hybrid electric vehicle is more than probably now will be more than 200,000, and for the battery we have more than. We have in 2021 we have about 11,000, but I think this year that will be increasing more and more as we have some EV incentive and putting the subsidy into EVs. So this is some of the model that is available. This is a model of battery EV that is available in Thailand. As you can see that there's a lot of EV models, and the prices seem to be coming down now more and more. Of course, we have the luxury segment like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and also they have the cheaper models. Probably would be less than about 1 million baht, which is if you convert into the US, you divide about 32 baht. Right? So and we have newcomer like the Chinese manufacturer like Great Wall Motor, MGs. They start to have the EV models in Thailand. And also there's some news. I mean, currently there's a news in Thailand too that the Tesla Thailand already is setting up the companies to sell the Tesla in Thailand now. That's what is the news during this week. And also the this is for the local EV in Thailand. There's companies who develop the electric scooter. That's Thai companies. I think I heard of at least 2 or 3 companies that develop the electric scooter. We have a few companies to develop the electric bus and also the electric tuk-tuk. So not only do we have the global player, but also I think there's a local player who develop its own vehicles. And in terms of charging infrastructure, of course, I think many people are talking about the the type of this talking about the charging infrastructure preparation. Now we have as I mentioned that we have both the battery PHEV. So now we have the charging station. We have like for the normal charging is the AC charge, and the quick charge or the fast charge is the DC charging. So look at this is the charging operator in Thailand. So at the moment we have I think several charging operator and service provider. So the previous energy companies, they already start the EV business here in Thailand, and they also have new companies, a new business, a new startup to start the charging service here in Thailand. So there are a lot of this, just getting a lot of charging infrastructure, starting charging station now, more and more, especially in Bangkok, we see a lot of them. So this is the number of the charging infrastructure, charging station in Thailand. So we have, I think at the moment, probably more than 700. This is information from September last year. So we have more than 700 locations now, I think. And for the AC, we have about 1,500 charging outlet. And for the DC, we have around 700 charging. So this is scattering around Thailand, but mostly in the Bangkok and surrounding area. And we also, the charging station install a lot on the motorway, on the main road, and some city they already have the charging infrastructure, right? Okay, I think probably almost my last slide. So this is the I think the for the standard for the charging. At the moment, we based on the European European standard. So for the electric bus, I think they already implement that. We probably for the both electric bus and the electric passenger vehicle, we based on AC Type 2. And for the DC fast charge, they based on CCS or what we call configuration FF, right? But for the passenger vehicle, I think we open for all charging outlet. But in the realities, I think there are only 2 charging outlets in only 2 DC charger they install. One is CHAdeMO from Japan, and another one is a CCS from Europe. I don't see on the GBT or combo ones here in Thailand. Maybe only 1 or 2 stations, but all of them is a CHAdeMO and combo type 2. Right. Okay. I think that's it for now. I think I give the overall of what's happening in Thailand in short. I'm happy to answer all the questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lonual. It's such an interesting presentation. Yeah, we got to learn what's happening in Thailand right now in terms of policy, also the progress, what's the number of hybrid EV and BEV in Thailand at the point of time. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have received all of your questions inside the question box. And I noticed that some of our speakers like Pak Riza has directly replied those questions from you, but many of it have not been replied yet. So right now, let's call some of the speakers to address the questions according to the time available. We will start with the questions from for Pak Hikmat PLN, yeah, since Pak Hikmat is delivering the keynote speech. There are plenty questions, Pak Hikmat, for you. I hope you are ready to answer these questions, Pak Hikmat. First, I think this is an interesting question from Pak Heru, yeah. And this question is also related to Pak Riza, I think. Pak Heru have suggestion that probably it's better to make it compulsory for every mall or building to set up charging station in their parking area, because the charging time is a little bit long, so car owner can go to the office or go to the mall while charging their car. The question, I think, is to Pak Hikmat and Pak Riza, how is the strategic EV charging deployment strategy in Indonesia right now? Does PLN or BRIN already have a roadmap or strategy for EV charging deployment in Indonesia? Please, Pak Hikmat and Pak Riza.
Thank you, moderators. In order to provide the charging station on the public area, of course, currently PLN has product and services, the franchise model. It means every investors or a building management, parking management can collaborate with PLN to provide charging station on the public area. For instance, currently we cooperate with at the Torres area to provide public charging stations, and also one of the biggest franchisor of the food already collaborate with PLN for some and several outlets to provide the public charging station. I think for the regulations, currently there are the government regulation on public charging stations. The Ministry of Energy release of the regulations of SPKLU regulations. And also we can provide together with the owners of the property, something like the apartments, also the hotels can provide together with PLN through the franchise model. Currently, PLN provides and also collaborate with them. That's some of explanations. Back to moderators.
Thank you, Pak Hikmat. Pak Riza, do you want to add some points on that? For instance, in your view, is it better at the first stage, like right now, to build charging station in mall, shopping station, apartment, or destination charging, yeah? And then in the second phase, where there are more electric cars, electric motorcycle, then focus on public charging station, or yeah. So that's what we'd like to know, Pak Riza. Do you have any view on that?
Yeah, in addition to Hikmat explanation that the PLN now want to expand the number of the charging station, but we have present in my presentation with our presentation, we want to encourage also the number in public area, yeah, such as in the office, mall, etc. Yeah? Because when we the characteristic of the user when they park the car at least maybe 2 or 3 hours, yeah, it is possible to charge the battery, and it is enough to temporarily charge the battery. And for that kind of charger, the charger is low investment, not as expensive as the fast charging. And also the system will give the low tariff to the user also. I think we have to encourage also the installation of this kind of charger.
Okay, thank you, Pak Riza. Now, as for the second question, I will pick question from Bapak Piada. I think it's still relatable, yeah, with the first question. So he asked about the cost of energy or cost of electricity to charge. In Pak Hikmat's presentation, you present about the electricity cost, yeah, for home charging and also for big charging. And he want to know the cost that you presented before, Pak Hikmat, is it for home charging only? And for electricity price for public charging, what is the current price and the plan in the future?
Thank you, moderators. For the cost of energy of the EV, it's simple calculations. For average 1.5 kilowatt hours, it means for around 1 liters of the oils. If we convert to the tariff, for instance, for the electricity tariff of Indonesia, around 1,450, it means around almost 60 to 40% below than the fuels tariff. It means the tariff normal, if the EV owners charge on the public area, it will be the tariff normal. But if they charge at their homes, PLN currently release the products overnight charging. It means discounts 30% the charging time from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the morning. It means if EV owners will cheaper for the cost of energy, better their use home charging and charge at the night from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's the cost of energy.
Thank
Back
you so
to
much.
moderators.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Hikmat. So, in conclusion, ya Pak, if we charge our EV at home, it will be cheaper, ya, than to charge it at public charging infrastructure.
But overnight charging from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. overnight charging.
Okay. To clarify, Pak, the price per kilowatt hour of electricity in Indonesia for home is around 1,400, ya Pak, right now.
Average 1,450 average. For instance, for the makes easy calculation, 100 and 1,500 it's enough to simple calculation. And the consumption of the EV just 1.5 kilowatt hour for 1 liter oil or fuel. That's the comparison.
Okay, but if we use public charging, the price is around 2,000, more than 2,000 rupiah per kilowatt hour, ya Pak?
Yeah, that's why we reference to the Minister of Energy regulations. If we charge on the public area, it will be higher than at the home charging. Because, you know, the investors should build and provide the charger and then operate, maintain, and then use the locations, parking, and so on. That's why higher than home charging tariff.
Okay. There's another question for Pak Hikmat from Ibu Kaniadia. She asked about the tariff, Pak, the discount, yeah. Is the home charging incentive only applicable for EV owner or all houses? I think she refers to the 30% discount at night, Pak.
Actually, all EV owners can register their EV to PLN first through the PLN mobile, and then we will calculate every month how much the energy consumptions of their EV at the charging at the home, and then we calculate the discount tariff 30% the end of the month. That's why better the first EV owner register to PLN through PLN mobile, and then we will indicate their EV, and then we will monitor their charging at the during the overnight charging.
I see.
The key is they have to register first to PLN through the PLN mobile.
Okay. Ibu Kania, so that's the ini ya Bu, the key ya. Register first at PLN mobile, and then PLN will calculate ya how much discount you will get for your electric vehicle at night. All right. So now there are actually, Pak Hikmat, still many questions for you, but I need to jump to other speakers to Pak Hikmat. So if you can write the answer in the question box, that will be very much appreciated. Now, Pak Hikmat already mentioned about PLN Mobile, so I think it's time to jump to Pak Adi from Icon Plus. As an information for everyone, Pak Adi is a VP level at Icon Plus, and he is replacing Pak Ismail during this Q&A session. So Pak Adi, Pak Ismail explained a lot about the charge in and PLN mobile, and it's very interesting, but maybe not many people knows about the technicality of charge in and PLN mobile. So I want to ask you how to use charge in, Pak. We download it, and what can we see in PLN charge in? And then Pak Ismail also mentioned that Icon Plus open for collaboration with government and private sector. How can we join to this ecosystem built by Icon Plus, Pak?
Okay. Thank you, moderator. Okay, I'm sorry for Pak Ismail. He has another urgent meetings, so he couldn't attend this Q&A session. So I will try to answer the question for everyone who interested in probably PL Mobile. Yeah, okay, to answer the question. First, charging used to be a standalone app, but right now it's already integrated within PLN Mobile. So for all EV owners who want to charge, especially for someone who want to charge using the SPKLU or the charging station owned by PLN, can just go to the nearby PLN office, or you can also open PLN Mobile and pick the menu of electric vehicle. There you can find there is a sub-menu to search within your area which charging station is the nearest, or you can also search on any location. So there is an option for to type your map or your location, and then we will give you the nearest location for charging, and then you can just go to the nearest location to you, or your choice of which location you want to charge, and then there's going to be a machine to charge, and then you can scan the QR code using the PLN Mobile, and then you can choose on how many kilowatt hours you want to charge to your car, or you can just predict on how many kilowatt you want to charge, and we already have a feature to stop on any you can just stop it if it is too much, or you want to go even though your charging is not complete yet. So it's totally safe, and you can also top up or you can pay. You can pay right now using Link Aja, GoPay, OVO, and soon you can also top up using Dana. And if there is remaining points for you to charge, and we will give you a refund directly, or you can also put your remaining points within PLN Mobile, and you can also charge using that point as well. So I think this is quite convenient for everyone. Unlike the normal SPLU, the charging station that only has a charging port, the SPKLU right now you can charge on depending on your choice on how many kilowatt hours you are charging. So yeah, please try it for every EV owner. Try to find your nearby charging station and try our charging. And also charging right now is also available for home charging. Like Pak Hikmat said, that everybody who has EV owner and home charger in their house can register through PLN Mobile, and we will calculate your usage and give you discount during the night. Yeah, and for the second question, for everyone, government, private sector, we are welcome to collaborate. For example, I think some of companies like Mandiri and BRI are trying to have their own home charger or public charging station in their office. Then we gladly to help on how we can integrate the system and how we can install in the all areas our customer desire to have. As long as of course there's going to be technical requirements, but we are glad to help. And of course for ATPMs or also MSMEs who want to collaborate, and we can talk about it, and let's see how can we collaborate to build the EV ecosystem in Indonesia.
Thank you, Pak Adi. There is a question from Ibu or Bapak Puspito from Total Energies Marketing Indonesia. The question is addressed to Pak Hikmat, but maybe it's also relatable to Pak Pratama Adi. So both gentlemen can address this question. So Total Energies want to participate in sharing economy model, but there is no response. So if you can give them like a written response, they want to be connected with the relevant PIC gitu. So Total Energies want to involve in the sharing economy model in your EV ecosystem planning?
Okay, thank you, moderators. Of course, currently we open collaborations with any kind of investors through the sharing economy model and franchise model. Maybe it not respond, but should it has to be finds. Our team will evaluate about the registrations of the candidate investors to collaborate with PLN, both through the sharing economy model and also the franchise model. And for the quick response or the furthermore information, you can direct send to me what the process should be currently stuck, and will help to accelerate the process. You can send to me directly. That's my answer. Back to my moderator.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Pak Hikmat. Pak Puspito, there is already green light, yeah, from Pak Hikmat to directly access Pak Hikmat on this matter. All right. So there is another question which I think is relevant not only for Pak Riza but also for Dr. Yosapong Launwal. It's about government policy. So the question is, what's the current government incentive in Indonesia right now, and how the government can help reduce the EV costs in Indonesia right now? And maybe after explanation from Pak Riza, Dr. Launwal can share a bit about the experiences in Thailand.
Okay, I think one of the incentive is about the tax, yeah. But for this detail, I think it is the domain of the Ministry of Energy. We will also hope that there will be good incentive further in order to get the cheaper electric vehicle. But when we see the global movement for in the automotive industry, but especially the electronic company that goes to the automotive industry, now they are planning, and we heard that the low-cost EV will enter in the coming years. Yeah, for example, from the Chinese manufacturer, yeah, they are already developed the low-cost EV that I think this is also will attract the people to use to use the EV. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Riza. Yeah, we saw from the news, yeah, that low-cost EV from China is about to enter Indonesia. Hopefully, it will enter soon, so people like me can also buy electric vehicle. But Dr. Yosapong Launwal, what's currently happening in Thailand? How does the government can reduce the price of electric car? What kind of incentives are currently available there?
Right, good. Well, before we have the subsidy announced this year, I mean, in Thailand, I think there's some FTA between ASEAN and China, and I think Thailand would be allowed the electric vehicle from China to come into Thailand with the 0% import tax, which is normally would be, could be 20% from Japan or 80% from Europe. So I think that in the last 4 or 5 years, especially last 3 years, we have some battery EV models to the Thai market. And of course, we still have, excise tax in the country, right? So we have seen the number of electric vehicles growing. I mean, but it's not that fast compared to just this year that the government announced the, that's really the package, right? So it's not only the reduce the import tax to many countries, but also the reduce the excise tax. And of course, we have some user subsidy, but that will be linked with the OEMs that they'll have to plan to produce a vehicle in next a couple of years in Thailand. So It's not only the promotes of the EV user, but also at the same time to create the industry in Thailand. And then we found that the price is decreasing. I think some of the questions that I've been answered, I give example that the price will be reduced from, almost 20%. If you vehicle around 1 million baht, less than 1 million baht, so in Thailand would be 34 baht, equal to $1. Okay, so the price will reduce almost more than 20%. And then I think there's people start booking. I think the number of EV is increasing a lot this year and next year. I mean, the problem is that I think the OEM have some issue now at the moment about the shortage of some chip, the electronic device that they have. But if you book EV now, probably you will receive it by the ends of this year or maybe probably next year. So that you can see that, of course, the long queue. There's a lot of people booking now, and but of course, it's the issue. It's the problem of OEM that they need to sort out their supply chains. But so that's what's happening in Thailand. So we have at least 3 or 4 companies who join this program, and there will be more and more coming. Yeah, both for passenger vehicle and the internal combustion and the motorcycle. So the point is that you need to reduce the gap between ICE and battery EVs. Of course, the operating cost will be cheaper already, compared to the oil price. So I think you need to reduce that gap. So if you can reduce that gap, I think people will start to thinking about. I mean, the mass people will start to consider EV as their first choice now. In the past would be their second choice and maybe their second car. Yeah, that's what's happening in Thailand now. Yeah.
Okay, understood, Dr. Launwal. Yeah. There's this question from Pak Andika Sutejo about what are the incentive offered to EV buyers buying an EV in Indonesia. But maybe I want to ask Pak Yatin, Mr. Yatin, Mr. Yatin Premchand. I will modify a bit this question. If you can give insights on not only incentive offered to EV buyers, like personal buyers, or private buyers like myself in Indonesia, but also for those commercial companies like ride-hailing and then logistic company or bus company. What are the incentives that can be offered to these companies so they can increase their EV fleet in Indonesia? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for pushing that to me. There is a slide on that I didn't get to present on, but anyway, what we're seeing in terms of trends, whether it's Indonesia or anywhere else, there's 2 fundamental components when you're looking at transition to EVs. One is looking at the abatement of fuel cost. So if you are a fleet operator, you're paying an X amount for petrol or diesel. That component gets moved into electricity, and typically, as you've seen, PLN itself is also offering a discount on being able to charge your EVs. So there's a price differential there that pegs to a carbon differential as well. And the upside of that can actually look at about 30, 50, 80% worth of displacement of carbon, which then can be converted into bonds or traded. So there's another revenue model that comes and flows back into the fleet operator. Looking on the passenger vehicle side, again, there's an incentive between cheaper electricity versus that of fuel. There's also an opportunity around grid to vehicle, which is being deployed in a number of countries, especially where you have energy markets in play, which allows for prosumers to be able to actually generate or provide grid services. So there is another component over there, which through grid modification can actually unlock an entire value chain of opportunities.
Thank you, Yatin. You mentioned about grid to vehicle, which is interesting. And it's also related to a question from Brijesh Kumar Gautam. He asked if in Indonesia, we are using vehicle to grid technology to restore the power to grid.
That's a good question.
Yes. Pak Hikmat maybe can also add into that later.
Yeah, I'm not aware of how many, other than Europe and in parts of the US, for example, and maybe in Japan, there are some examples of that happening and taking place. Part of that has to do with grid modification and upgrade of infrastructure. The other part of it has to do with an ancillary service or a market to be able to actually provide a monetary compensation for that. In Indonesia itself, I'm not aware, but I'm sure some of the other speakers could contribute to it. But there are these sort of underpinning technology upgrades that are required in terms of planning for the grid, planning for the CPO side, and the utility and investments to be able to kind of benefit from that. One other element I must say, looking at a grid balancing with renewables coming online, for example, aggregation of electric vehicles is a mobile battery source, right? Rather than investing billions of dollars in grid connected storage, there is a way to actually use the aggregated fleet, if you will, or population of vehicles through smart grids, and a much lower investment in grid modification to be able to use that than investing in huge amounts of energy storage. So definitely an enabling technology, but planning, policy, regulation, and future planning is very critical on the grid side.
Pak Hikmat, do you have any opinion to add into that?
According to V2G, vehicle to grids, of course, this is part of our roadmap in terms of the distributed energy resources. It means how any resources distributed can integrate with the grids in order to make an efficient process. For instance, let's say there are 1 million EV, and then they integrate to the grid. It means we have, for instance, 1 gigawatt power plant. It's the same. This is part of our roadmap in order to the transformations, something like the business process, and also the technicalities aspects in order to prepare our capacity of the local grid, the capacity of cable, the systems, SCADA systems, and so on. Because, once 1 million V2G, we have to manage 1 million micro power plants. That's not so easy. It should be, we set up first the regulations, business process, and we have to prepare, of course, all aspect of technicalities. That's the key point is this is our roadmap to implement the V2G on the grid. That's our additional informations and relevant to and related to Yatin's explanations. Thank you, Yatin, for the sharings. Very good. Back to moderator.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the insights and the fruitful conversation, and for the participants as well. But looking at the time, I need to wrap up today's session. Yeah, it's been very intimate, I think. So many questions and so many questions left unanswered. So if you want to send an email to PAMERINDO, and then maybe they can forward it to the speakers, that will be very awesome. Yeah. So now, to wrap up today's session, I would like to conclude that the stakeholders in Indonesia have tried their best to accelerate the deployment of electric vehicle, and also the deployment of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We can hear from PLN how they are trying their best to keep up with the public charging infrastructure, and then give price incentive for home charging infrastructure, and how Icon Plus, as one of PLN subsidiary company, try to digitalize the EV ecosystem, and then open for collaboration with private or public stakeholders. And also, good point from Yatin before, that not only private user, but commercial user also there is many incentive for them to move to EV. Yeah. If the fuel cost, for instance, in Indonesia will be like higher, and then there are other revenue model, carbon tax maybe, or carbon credit later in the future. There is still many revenue model that we can utilize. So EV is definitely bring many benefits for Indonesia and for the world. I know that there is debate about whether EV is more environmentally friendly or not, but I think we need to look above that. There's more benefits in addition to that. EV brings reduce air pollutions, and then as Pak Hikmat mentioned before, that it will reduce oil consumption, and we still import oil from outside. And there are many other benefits in the future as well. So lastly, I would like to ask simple closing notes from each speaker, maybe just a sentence, yeah, about their conclusion about today's event and their pesan-pesan or insights for participants. I will start from Pak Hikmat.
The statement for the public or audience to better knows EV, let's start download and install PLN mobile first, and then how you can navigate and explore both how PLN currently operate home charging, public charging stations, franchise model, and so on. And let's download and install PLN mobile first. That's the closing statements. Thank you, moderators and all speakers.
Thank you. Next up, Pak Riza.
Okay, yeah, we hope that the ecosystem will much better. The EV price will go down, and the number of infrastructure we can collaborate with, we will increase the number. Then we can get the benefit of the clean energy development. Thank you.
Thanks, Pak Riza. Next, Mas Pratama Adi from Icon Plus.
Icon Plus, as part of PLN Group, invites and welcome every stakeholders to join us as we embark on the journey to accelerate the EV ecosystem in Indonesia. We believe that we could make big change in EV industry and ecosystem in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mas Adi. We look forward for your next products, yeah, in digitalizing EV ecosystem in Indonesia. Next, Pak Yatin.
Yeah, I think watch this space. It's going to get very exciting very fast, and it's going to impact every segment of Indonesia in terms of life. So, everything from motorcycles to fleets to power and independence and energy security. So, we're really looking forward to playing an extended part in Indonesia as we have for decades in the power system and the transport segment.
Thank you so much, Pak Yatin. Last but not the least, please welcome Dr. Yosapong Launwal.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy that see the Indonesian movement here for the EVs, and I mean, in terms of we are global citizen. I would like to see this kind of initiative working anywhere. So I'm very happy to support what the Indonesian movements, and anything that you need from me, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you so much. What a friendly gesture from our friend from Thailand, Pak Yosapong Launwal. So with that, the panel discussion has been ended, and I need to revert it back the session to Mbak Anissa from PAMERINDO. Mbak Anissa.
Thank you, Ms. Felsupa, for moderating today's session. Thank you for Mr. Peter Lundberg and Mr. Edi Widiono for the wonderful opening remarks. We would also like to thank our speakers today, Mr. Hikmat Derajat, Mr. Riza, Mr. Ismail Du, Mr. Yatin Pemchen, and Dr. Yosapong Launwal for presenting today. And also thank you to our sponsor, Jembo Cable and Altrax 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of today's webinar. Visit Electric and Power Indonesia. Electric and Power Indonesia 2022 will be back this year in a hybrid format from 14 until 17 September 2022 at the Jakarta International Expo Kemayoran, where we will combine a physical exhibition with various activities that will be carried out through a digital platform. Electric and Power Indonesia 2022 will be the perfect hybrid platform to do business with prospective clients who are actively looking for suppliers or buyers, as well as seeking the latest information in the electric and energy sector. See you all physically and virtually. For the attendees who wants to rewatch the recording of today's webinar, the video will be accessible at www.electricandindonesia.com after the Energy Talk series has finished. My name is Anissa, and on behalf of PAMERINDO Indonesia, we would like to thank our insightful speakers today. Thank you for joining today's Energy Talk. We hope to see you again on another session of Energy Talk with another topic of discussion. Have a good day, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Abi, thank you, Mas Abi.
Terima kasih Pak Hikmat.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Keep well. Take care.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with some of you soon.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mas Karija.
Mari.
Okay, healthy
Ya.
everybody. All the best
Makasih, Pak
for
Ari.
your all success. Thank you.
Saya udah sempat ke Bali, Pak Ari. Lihat persiapan G20.
Pak Edi. Makasih Pak Edi.
Ya, Pak Hikmat, terima kasih.
Izin, apakah sudah bisa live?
Ya,
Silakan, dipersilakan. Untuk
ya, makasih semuanya.